Okay, we are back. We are live. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you guys for coming back. Sorry about that. We appreciate you joining us. Now, again, we're going to start this again. Thank you guys for joining. Yay! Hey.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Mercury's not even in retrograde. So I think we were talking, we left off of the search and that I took a big space. And when you were fixing your sound, I was talking about that we decide how much we want to share with
Yeah,
our adoptive family.
right,
We don't owe anything, we don't have to share them.
right.
And because it's also a personal journey. And if you know they're going to be negative about it, you need to protect your energy and your space and your search because you're already, you know, putting a lot of effort and emotional energy to the unknown.
Yes. I also found that because my family and I didn't talk very much about it, I wasn't comfortable with beginning it, with even really kind of sharing it because I never grew up really talking about it. And I don't think that they did it maliciously. I think it just wasn't like, why do we need to bring up that, that or whatever. So, um, yeah, I appreciate you verbalizing that, vocalizing that we don't have to share that we're searching um, with our with our adopted families.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Somebody asked, can you share again about the search, how you did it? Go.
Yeah, so my sister had a professor who was Colombian, and they heard about our story, and she put us in contact with one of her friends from Colombia. And he really just wanted to help out. So we gave him the cedula number, the ID number of our mother. And with that information in the name, he was able to find them. And they come from a very small town, so it wasn't hard to find them because everyone knows each other and our brothers and sisters work and everyone knows them. So that's in a nutshell, that's how we found them through someone who just really wanted to help our story. It wasn't even an investigator.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's really awesome. Since we just started this, I'm gonna kind of do a little bit of an introduction, just so those who are joining, they kind of know what's going on. My name is Maria, and I'm here with Elena, and she is a Colombian adoptee. And this is our fifth live with adoptees in South America and extended Latin Americas. And this is part of our series that we began back in February, and it's called Lift Our Voices Up. And we are just trying to amplify the voices within the South American community that Megan and I have created. So thank you for joining in. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. And then after, kind of towards the end, we'll answer, and then Elena can answer any questions that she would like along the way as well.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yes. So, okay. So once again, thank you for sharing that about the adoptive parents. It's not necessary. It's fine. Because there a lot of guilt does come with wanting to start. Did you find that you had any guilt at all?
Um, I this was like 12 years ago. I probably had a little bit, and that's probably why I didn't share because um, I was worried that they would be jealous or start feeling insecure. Um, but as we told them a little bit, they were surprisingly interested and supportive. So I'm very fortunate for that because I know that doesn't happen a lot to many adoptees. And I think part of the fear is that we will lose our adoptive parents or just have another loss if they decide to reject us because we're looking for our first family. So that's what I've just doing what the work I'm doing now with Healing Puentes. I've noticed that, And that's always an important question to know, like, are they supportive or not? Because that changes
Right.
how things could, turn out.
True. I don't know what was said while I was trying to kind of navigate. Feel free to, if you want to kind of go over it again.
Um, with the search, yeah, I mean, the person who helped us did not, we don't have contact with him, and he's not an investigator. Um, in terms of agencies, and that aren't money driven, honestly, I'm not sure. Some people have used Plan Angel here in Colombia, but it's a lot with DNA search, and you have to have like your mother's ID number in order, because it's difficult to find if you don't have the mother's ID number from your birth certificate. It can be more difficult. Yeah, so everyone's search is different. I have to like stress that, and there's no timeline. Some could be quick and some can be longer, and I'm still learning as I go also. One of the main reasons I started Healing Puentes was to make it accessible for everybody. What's happened is, investigators take advantage of our desperation and our vulnerability to want to find our families, and they don't care about the emotional piece or the pacing or knowing when to just put a pause, because they really many of them just want to find the family and get their money and go.
Right.
So that's, and I'm not a professional, I'm not a professional investigator. I'm a social worker, and that's why I'm doing it. So I'm like, from personal experience and my social work background, I can bridge them, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm in Colombia, and it's it's easier to do the search when you're actually in the country. Mm-hmm. Yeah, through Colombia you can, yes, Christina, a friend of mine, she mentioned you can submit a request through ICBF, which is like Child Protective Services here, and it's no cost. It may take a little bit longer, but there's no cost. And it also depends on how much information you have. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they're helpful. This is new. This is very new, only within the last like 3 or 4 or 5 years, that the ICBF, which oversees all of the adoption agencies in Colombia, they created a new department to help adoptees look for their families.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's good that they're trying to make it better or be of help, because yeah, a lot of foreign countries are not willing to do that.
Right. And it's a good stepping stone. And just to mention, there's a lot of things happening in the adoption community. There's 2 European countries who have stopped international adoption because of the corruption that had occurred, like in this, I don't know since when, 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s.
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's well, time's up. The stuff needs to be, investigated, and things need to be, they've got a lot of I'm trying to think of the word. We've got a lot to clean up. We've got a lot to clean up.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I feel like this, these adoption conversations are more visible now, and the mainstream community, they're realizing, oh wait, maybe this isn't in the best interest of the child. Do you know what I mean? Like to separate quickly without trying to find other family members or things like that.
Right, and then seeing the shock it is when we do want to search, and the difficulties of navigating our identities. And I agree, the voices that are sharing, and the community that's being created, I think it is shining a lot of light on the realness of it, the realness of the reality of everything.
I still share when I talk about like even corruption and how it was, a business, especially in the 70s and 80s in Colombia. A lot of Colombians don't know either, and they're surprised. And also on my website, I found some good articles. There's one from the New York Times that talk about this like history of adoption in Colombia. But if you search, you can find very similar stories. Guatemala, Ethiopia, because they've stopped international adoption. Do you know what I mean? Spain also with the Catholic Church. That's a whole nother story. We don't need to go there.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, and so it's like levels of trauma, the separation, and then finding out, oh, it wasn't transparent. Like, how does one deal with that? Like, as a young person, like that, and that's why we go back to the 28. The average age is 28 because it's not just about, ooh, let's find my birth family.
Right.
No, it's much more complicated than that.
Yes, you're right. What age do you typically work with when you provide your services? Do you notice like a certain age that comes to you?
Right now, let's see, I would say average is, yeah, it could be 40s, 40, 50s, and some younger people in their early 30s.
Mm,
So but it's definitely above, I would say 25.
right. Yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense. That makes sense. Um, yeah, that really does make sense. While
Yeah.
they're waiting, and I know I've heard some people say, that they're waiting for maybe an adoptive parent to pass before they begin searching.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Or they're just kind of waiting for that moment where they feel um, like they're ready to dive in when it may get kind of messy.
Yes, I've heard of that, and I understand also. Um, it's just important if they're holding your paperwork, this has been an issue. Some parents don't give paperwork. So, if you're waiting, like, and they still have your documents, it's important to try to get the documents beforehand. Also, something I've noticed, and this is my case, like if you're an older adoptee in the 70s or 80s, the likelihood that your mother is alive, decreases, so that's something also to consider. And
Yeah.
I think it goes into putting your needs first.
Right.
We always put, oh, I'm going to do this because it's better for them. Oftentimes we put our needs secondary. So this is, I think, an example, like, what do you need? If you're, you know what I mean? What's more important, that, or you finding at that moment, your birth family, or at least starting the search? So those are things just to take into consideration.
Yeah. And so, do you have? Do you, yeah. Do you have? Can you recall? I know it's been kind of a while. Do you recall? I guess your why in searching. Like, were you just like, you said that you were kind of always aware, but do, can you remember the time where you were just like, all right? Because I know you said it kind of like flipped. Um, but the first time when you guys both decided, all right, let's do this, was it just because you were curious? Um, I know a lot of people do it because they want help. They're hoping for health records or health history. I know for me, I was in a place where it was like, I've got some healing to do, and I'm gonna see where it takes me. And I didn't expect it to take 13 years to find my birth family, but I did find a lot of growth and healing and learning a lot of bit about myself through the process. Uh,
Yeah, I think as I became like more confident in myself, and as I knew that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, and I felt safe in myself, then I feel like I was able to progress and take and be more open to communicating with them and to searching. And that's the one thing, adoptees ask me, how do you know if it's a good time? And I say, if you know that you're going to be fine and that your dignity and worth is the same no matter what happens after the search, then I think that's, good to go. Do you have to be 100% there? No, of course not. I don't think anybody is. But if you know and you feel like secure in yourself and you have support, then I think it's a good green light to continue.
That's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
This is really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, in case other people didn't hear, just real quick, of course, the website is focused on Colombian search, but there's resources for everyone. And you mentioned the healing piece. I was in therapy for like 8 years to deal with abandonment, adoption stuff that I didn't know I even had until I went in. And this was as a social worker, right? um, One thing, I would like to mention here, and this is my experience and opinion, and it's the therapy piece is super important, and I always encourage everybody, whether you're adopted or not, it's always good to go, I think, at least once in your life to understand yourself better. For me, therapy helped me understand why I act and react the ways I do with other people, especially with intimate like partners, because that goes back to the attachment style. Okay. So talking about the attachment styles also in there, there's a quiz, and that it's very helpful to understand yourself and how you react with other people or your workplace. Having come here to Colombia, back to my birthplace, has been healing, and there's like the therapy, but then there's a layer of healing that is so individual and unique to each person that I can't even describe it because it's so different for each person. But I feel like had I not done the psychological and the therapy piece, I think that it would have been too much to try to do the therapy and the healing piece at the same time, if that makes sense. And healing is different for every person. And I mentioned the 5 wounds of the soul. Have you heard about that?
No.
Okay, it's super interesting, and I was thinking about it in the pandemic because we had lots of time to think about things in the pandemic. If most adoptees, we have it whether we realize it or not. The 5 wounds of the soul. I'm going to try to remember them. It's betrayal, humiliation, injustice, abandonment, and then there's a 5th one that I always forget, but you can find it. You just look it up. It's on my website. And I think when we're aware of those, then we can start doing something to address them, whatever that looks like. Running, ancestral medicine, therapy, or a combination of those things to feel better, and not be stuck in the fog.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah. And what was it? What was it called again? The 5
Wounds of the Soul.
okay.
Yes, yeah, by Lise Bourdeau. She's like a family counselor for many, many years, and she connects like the emotional. She has a very good book I have to recommend that I use it a lot, like What's Your Body Trying to Tell You? So she connects the metaphysical, like emotional illnesses, the physical illnesses we have with the emotional block.
Mhm.
Super interesting also. Um,
Yeah.
so I would check those out as resources.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking. You did have a lot of resources on there. You had books, you had links. You had a lot of good stuff on there.
Hmm. No, Pequeño's asking a question. No, she's from Europe somewhere. I think she's French, actually. But she's done many, many studies about it. Um, yes, and it is important to find a therapist that you click with. If you don't like someone, you're like, I don't feel comfortable, or she's kind of strange, find a different one. You don't have to feel bad. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't like you. Um, look for an adoptee sensitive therapist, and I have those links also. And it's only therapists that are adoptees or have adoption experience.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, so yes, definitely. There's nothing wrong, and I hope the stigma is like decreasing year by year. I think of therapy as a gift to yourself.
Mhm.
It's a gift to yourself. Is it hard? Totally. Super hard. And it's tiring. I remember I came out and I was like, I need to go take a nap, because we are exerting a lot. And I think people who go to therapy have strength more than anything. It's not a weakness. So I'd like to say that out loud, um,
Yeah.
to go for it. Yeah.
That's a, that's awesome. Thank you. And yes, I've heard from a lot of adoptees to find a therapist that's either, if you can, find a therapist that, like you said, is an adoptee or is educated in the what are they educated in? I mean, what adoption?
Mm-hmm.
What would you go ahead?
Oh, what? Yeah, like look, do you prefer a psychologist? I am a little biased. I am a licensed clinical social worker. We look at the whole person, not just a diagnosis.
Right.
You know, have a interview them. A lot of times there's a free consultation, 30 minutes. See if you like them. I have used Psychology Today. They have a Find Therapist, and you click in. Maybe you want a man, a woman, black, white, Latino, young, old. You can also do it by insurance. Yes, and someone mentioned therapy is expensive. In network, it's less expensive. If you go out of network, sometimes you pay out of pocket, but then sometimes your insurance will reimburse you 70 or 75%. Yes. Also, you can look into universities. I did this in the beginning when I did not have a job. Many universities are looking for people like the psychologists that are in training. They often give therapy for $20 or free because they need to learn. So if you don't have insurance or don't have the money at this time, look into your local university. And maybe even if, now that I think about it, maybe if you don't have a university, it's probably virtual now. It doesn't hurt. Email the psychology department or the social work department. I have not yet been on Adoption Mosaic, but I would love to, and I really like their work. I'm starting to read about them, El Pequeño. Yeah, I was just reading some of the
Yeah.
answer some of the questions.
Yeah. No, thank you. Good stuff. Good stuff. So I was navigating on your website. I don't know if you talked about this earlier, but your logo. I really like how you came up with your logo.
Oh,
That.
thanks. Yeah, I just updated it like a few months ago. So it's the heart chakra, right? I think that's one of the most important chakras, if we're talking about energy, and I have my little chakra pendulum here. It comes down to the heart. I think we're so much in our head, and I think a lot too. And my sister says I overthink sometimes, which I do, but who doesn't, right? But it's, we can get overwhelmed here, but it's bringing it back here and listening to ourselves here. Then I think, if we make choices from our heart more from fear or from our head, not to say the brain's important because it is, I think we can, make decisions without fear that way. So it's the heart chakra, and then the adoption symbol, which is the triangle with the heart to represent the triad, biological family, adoptive family, and us. And then inside is the flower of life. So if anybody follows sacred geometry, that's what that's about, that we're all interconnected, whether we realize it or not, or even if we don't want to be, we're interconnected. And yeah, it's like it's all about the energy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at the any questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, El Pequeño has one. My adoption was closed back in, I don't know, I don't think there are many, it's not common for an open adoption, probably more now. My adoption agency was CRAN. And they, I had a good experience with them when I went back in 2012. I went back to get asked for my paperwork and they gave it to me. That does not always happen. But now all of the paperwork, all of our documents are housed in the ICBF because many of the agencies were saying that we don't have any more or they didn't want to give us. So now the ICBF, the government agency for adoption, has all of our files, and that's who we go to. CRAN is CRAN. That was mine, and from Colombia. Where are you from, El Pequeño, if I can ask? Are you also from Colombia or a different country? So yeah, I really like my logo. Yeah, because the logo is very important. It has a lot of symbolism. Oh, Bogota. Okay, cool.
Somebody
Yes.
asked, somebody submitted a question. Do you happen to know if the ICBF equivalent in Ecuador has a similar service? And or do you know of a service similar to Healing Puentes for adoptees born in Ecuador?
Is that for you? I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm from Ecuador, but I don't know. I mean, you were talking about that, and I'm amazed that that even exists. So I've got to do my homework and see if it is something that exists over there.
Yeah, and this is what we did a few years ago. The Colombian Adoptees, we created a petition, and we had like petition.com or .org, and we had like over 100 signatures because at that point they only had 2 social workers for over 800 requests. Like it was just not enough people. So we told them we would like for you to hire more people, and actually it worked. They hired at least 2 more. There's only about 5 people right now, 4 or 5 people in this Buscando Orígenes in the ICBF. But I know I've met them, and I've met that department and the person who runs it, and we have an alliance. So because I help sometimes if an adoptee does not speak Spanish, translate or advocate for them through the email to get through and send the application.
Okay.
So yeah, I would write, if you all don't have one, write them an email and see.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing, you know, when you have international pressure, people sometimes start to move, and if you get enough signatures to show this is what we would like in a respectful way, right?
Thank you for sharing that. And great job advocating, group advocating, state giving, advocating makes a difference. Change is possible. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know how organized the Ecuadorian adoptees are, but it does make a difference. And I don't know the history also of adoption in Ecuador. So it all, you know, each country is a little bit different, even though we share similarities.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got some homework to do because, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if a group like that exists. It's got to be a matter of time. Just a matter of time where adoptees are, you know, like you're saying, voicing their opinion and trying to make change happen, trying to kind of twist arms to see work be done.
Yes.
Question about your Spanish real quick. I don't know if you discussed it. So you're bilingual. Were you bilingual growing up, or did you teach yourself Spanish? How did you stay, or how did you become bilingual?
Yeah. So I took it in high school. You know, I was very motivated. I did not grow up speaking Spanish, but it's ironic because my adoptive mother is a language teacher and she taught Spanish, which is funny. So, you know, I knew I needed to learn it for myself as part of my identity. So after high school, I went to Argentina as an exchange student for a year before going to college, before starting university. So I just immersed myself, and that's how I became bilingual. I studied abroad in Spain for a semester to focus on grammar. I was in Peace Corps for 2 years or so in the Dominican Republic. So that's basically how. How I became bilingual, and I encourage anyone, it doesn't matter how old you are, if you want to learn Spanish, go for it. There's applications, apps like on the phone, and I'm sure there's like virtual Spanish speaking groups, online, but you would have to look for them, or friends, and to go for it, and not be afraid about it if that's something that's calling you to learn.
Mm, thank you.
Mhm.
El Pequeño says, where did you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York, 3 hours north of the city, New York City, in a small town in the mountains. No more, about 2,000 people.
Wow.
So I went from small town, I was like, see ya, and went to Argentina and traveled and went to the big cities in the United States afterwards.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go ahead and open the floor. I know some questions have already come through, but if you have any specific questions for Elena, please feel free to drop them in the comments so we can get this started.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question for you real quick. Does your birth family know of the work that you're doing in Colombia?
Yes, actually, yes, they do. They're excited about it. One of my sisters, she helps me, because she was kind of informally adopted also. Yes, my nieces and nephews know about it, and they love the idea. It's about like coming full circle, and that's what it's about. Um, Coming full circle. I'm okay now. There were times that were not easy, and it's just to show that you can have like your own adoption transformation. We don't have to be stuck as victims. And if there's any takeaways, I think it would be that. I think regardless of what happened, how our adoption happened, how our adoptive family treated us, at the end of the day, we decide how our narrative continues, and we can decide also if we want to be victims of it, and no judgment, okay? No judgment. There's just a time where I remember I may never know the truth, but you know what? That's okay. So it's about acceptance of
Yeah.
what happened. And this is not the case for everybody. I'm just saying, I know many adoptees who no longer speak with their adoptive families. I did not speak to, a family member for a while, so nothing, you see me now and I have Healing Puentes, but it wasn't overnight, and it took a lot of tears and pain to digest and process,
Mm,
and balancing both families. That is one thing I would like adoptees just to be aware of. Some people think the search is the hardest part, but it's actually not. It's
Ooh,
actually post-search
yeah,
balancing two families,
yeah,
especially if you have one family that's a little bit insecure or jealous that you're forming a whole nother relationship.
yeah,
That's difficult.
yeah. Mm,
Um, yeah, so my twin sister, yeah, we were adopted together. Thank God and the universe. And she's my full biological sister. She's in Washington, D.C. right now. And yeah, we were adopted together, and my parents decided do not split up any siblings. So what happened? Their name went to the top of the list, and they had to, and they waited less, because some twins are separated.
yeah,
Sometimes siblings are separated, which is horrible, in my opinion.
that's amazing. That's really
Mm-hmm.
amazing that you guys had each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So yeah, just to finalize that one point is to really, we didn't have a choice of being adopted, but we have a choice of how it ends, or how it continues, I should say.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
You're so wise. You're so wise.
Well, you see, look right here, all this stuff here. I'm still learning. I learn every day, and it's a life process. I think it's important. I learn from the adoptees I work with, and it's a nice just reciprocal interchange. But yes, I'm here to guide as needed, or if someone just has a question, like I do virtual consultations just to check in. If someone has a question, and that's why I'm here. That's part of my mission.
Thank you. El Pequeño says, yes, we write our own story. We are the experts of us. We create our families. We have choices. Healing is a life journey. It is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that I thought after I found my birth family that things would be smooth sailing. I just I didn't expect to have more questions. Um, I didn't expect to the whole two family thing going on. Um, so yeah, a lot of we're not we're not really coached in like the reunion aspects, like the post, like you were saying, we're not told what to expect. There's not really conversations out there about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it kind of slapped me in the face. Mine was just
Mm-hmm.
last year, uh, but yeah, you're right. You're very right.
And that's something that's coming down the line. Like I have all of these thoughts and like frameworks in my mind, and I would like to formalize it, and not as a linear, but as a cyclical journey. Do you know what I mean? Before we go, something interesting is like having now been here for 4 years, I actually identify more with culture here. And when I recently went back to the States, it was quite difficult. And I had like a re-identity crisis. And I think that's like at the end when you go back to for those who decide to go back and to their home country and live there. And it's quite mind-blowing, I have to say. To go, you go where you grew up for 30 years, where you're adopted to, but when you go back, you feel like a foreigner.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing. And so that's something I'm coming down down the road eventually, to write about. And so, because this is new, adoption work has only started only like 10 years ago. And now that we're adoptees and we're growing up, and they're seeing it's a whole life cycle and a lifespan, it's new. There are wonderful people doing this work and working with adoptees, which is great. So yeah, find your support wherever you can.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Looking to see if
Zoom next time. Yeah, maybe future or YouTube, or yeah, it depends on the different social medias that we use for connection, I guess. We'll see.
I apologize for that. I don't know what happened with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I hope one of my other projects for Healing Puentes is to have like a monthly adoptee support group. But I'm still working on the day, and I have some other things I need to work on, but that will be coming up, and those will be on Zoom, El Pequeño, okay? So for Colombian adoptees. And also, if you don't know already, Megan and Maria have awesome also a support group once a month, which is great. And it's adoptees from all over South America. If you don't already follow them, you should. So
if anybody has any last questions before we sign off, Elena, you did an amazing job. So much wisdom. I know everybody. You were resonating. I was resonating with what you were saying, and I know other people were also feeling what you were saying. And just what a beautiful thing that you've created and that you're sharing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me. And one thing just came to me before we go, like, being adopted can actually be our superpower, I think, instead. instead of seeing it as something that happened to us. You know, everything happens for a reason, and there's a purpose. We all have a purpose in this.
Mm.
And so that's my hope for all adoptees, is to somehow, you know, through therapy, healing, and all that, transform it into your superpower, because we all have something to offer.
Beautiful.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining in. And of course, please follow Elena. We'll save this live and also see our other posts. Follow her work that she's doing, support her. Yes, just thank you guys for joining in today.
Thank you, everybody. Have
Bye.
a great night. Take care. Thanks,
Bye.
Maria. Okay, bye-bye.